Oh yeah, Matt Kantner is here as well. Matt, sorry about that. You were referred to earlier as brother. Is that can I introduce you as Matt Kantner, brother by Matt?
Sure thing.
Matt is our associate. Kantner is the associate principal for Equilibrium, the structural engineering firm. And they have a tremendous amount of expertise in timber construction. So Matt, thank you for being here as well, and I apologize for overlooking you in the introductions, but we're super excited having you guys here and look forward to learning about the project.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking the mayor and the community for the support for the project. It's really been able to push it forward and make it a success. From the architectural standpoint, we are the design team. This is Chris Nardone. He's the senior project architect, as mentioned. He has over 38 years of experience. And I am Katie Kmiecik. I actually graduated from Clemson University, so hearing all about those projects was really cool. And I'm the lead designer and have about 3 years of experience. A little bit about our company. We were founded in 1972, and we are a full-service architectural and engineering firm. We offer anything from transportation all the way through to interior design. And before getting into the project and the details, I do want to touch on Macon's history, which was a driving force behind the massing and the design of the project. The music industry is huge here. There's many legends from Macon, such as Otis Redding, Leonard Skinner, the Allman Brothers, Chuck Leavell, and Little Richard. And also, why we're all gathered today, the timber industry is a large thing in Georgia, so that was also a driving force, and it predates the 1900s. So.
Oh, before you switch over, before you switch over, though, I really want to point out the first picture of Otis Redding holding the guitar like the axe and leaving from his aircraft, and it's hard to see, but behind him is the World War II hangars that create the framework for the FBO. As the mayor was saying, and we were saying, the most important thing about the airport is it is a gateway. It is the first thing you see, especially from passengers coming in from the air. But it's also very important to the community, so the challenge is to make sure that that gateway also has this thing for the community. The thing about it was that from when you enter it as passengers, you see it as a guitar because you are up in the air. But then the experience on the ground is you kind of get the inkling of what it is. You can't tell right away, but you get the other expression of the piano keys that we have on the facade. Once you get there, the other experience is when you really enter the building and you really get to experience, and that's where it's very important that we selected wood. Wood gives that warmth, and as was mentioned earlier, you also get smells. That also is very good. So you get that full experience. So it was really not hard to think that mass timber was absolutely the quintessential structural component that we needed to make this work. Also, as you enter, you think of a wood guitar, but also what's essential is with timber, the complexities of what we're doing and how we're doing it, and the flexibility of that is just incredible, hands down. So another big element too, though, as we design the site is the security. What's very important is security at airports. You have your private, and you have your passengers, which is your private security area, but also you have the community. So the way we designed it is that you have your security area, but what works real well with the design is that as you approach the building as a two-story element, what it does is it allows the people from the community to go into the building, experience the building, go up to the second level where they can look out over the security area and experience the airport and not have to go through any security to do so. What's also beautiful about it is that we also have that balcony where you can look down on an event space that we created on one side of the building, while we put the back of house on the other side and access to the apron areas. Also, what's beautiful about it is when you are driving up from the community, you have an inkling of the guitar. You don't see it all because it's nestled in with the hangars, but you do get the neck coming out as you approach it. And what's very dynamic about the neck, and then hands down, is that it's CLT. The neck and the head is solid wood through and through. Also, what's great is with the flexibility of the wood, we actually created panelization that gives us the curvature. And we use that with segments of 4 feet, works with plywood, and it works everything with the windows to create the positive negative space and the piano keys. The experience on the other side is more abstract as you come up on an aircraft, because you already know it's a guitar if you had the chance of glimpsing out and seeing it from up above. But we were able to create a more dynamic effect on the outside because as you approach it, you actually see the essence of the guitar strings within the curtain wall of the building. And you start to see the structure through that. And you get that beautiful LED lighting of the 6 strings. As you go through the portal, you then really get to experience the building and its structure. And you get to see how we do the radial columns in form of a cobweb to work with the curvature of the guitar. You also have the LED lighting. The LED lighting on the ground is synced with music and colors, and also is tied into the entertainment space. So if you have a band playing underneath the tent, it will run your building. From the air, though, you only see the white lights of the guitar on the top. This is a view from the restaurant, which also you would have a view from the conference center, or the conference room next to it, where you then have the blend of the building and the excitement of the airfield. Look out on the field, the planes, you get that connection between aviation and then also music. And what's beautiful, you can see different colors. Any event, St. Patty's, the Blooming Festival, you can color for anything you want. But this is what speaks all about it, and where hands down the guitar was by far, because you have the sound hole. It creates a perfect rotunda for circulation to get up to the 2nd level. It creates a very dynamic space. You have a 24-foot diameter hole. You got the strings of LED lighting running through. And then you also, once again, get the expression of the beams and the radial pattern that works beautifully with the building.
Yeah, and some things I want to point out on this slide too are getting down to the details. We really push the narrative forward to the next level by incorporating details and nods to music, all the way down to you can see the spacers that are on top of the beams emulate guitar picks. And then we have this beautiful mural that the design intent for that is to highlight the local artists that are from Macon. And even the railing has it looks like piano keys if you look closely. In some places it is more literal, such as this bathroom that you experience in the lobby where the music theme is incorporated. But in some places it's more abstracted. Like if you look at the sink there, it's kind of hard to tell from this image, but it's an abstracted version of a guitar pick. And then circling back to that rotunda, this is from the downstairs view, and you can see the inset of the piano keys as you walk up the stairs. And this logo in the middle is actually going to feature guitar picks and resin to create that look. This is as you walk into the building. So this is the first thing that you're met with. And it's kind of like the whole back of house is behind you, and all that's in front of you is the public space and the airfield. This is another view looking at the LED lighting from the ground, and you can see the colors and how they change. This one obviously is for the 4th of July or any event like that. And then also another key thing that was crucial was lining up the piano keys and their spacing to make it look like a piano. So that was a challenge, incorporating the their interior layout with the facade. And then finally, I want to touch on the airside balcony again, because we did want to make this space like usable for the public year round. We incorporated retractable awnings so you can use it regardless of the weather or heat. Now I'll pass it over to Matt for some structural.
Thanks, Katie and Chris, and everyone else for being here and talking timber with me for a bit. Brief introduction to me and the company I work for. We're called Equilibrium. We're a structural engineering firm. We've had a focus on timber for over 25 years now, and have done a number of somewhat noteworthy projects in mass timber across the US, Canada, and further abroad. We've done over 100 mass timber projects at this point. I think my personal count is somewhere up in the 20s now, and most of those are, actually it's a mix. It's all over the country, to be honest. It's cool to start doing some projects a bit closer to home in the last couple of years. We're based in Vancouver, BC. That's where most of the team is. I lead our company in the US, and so we have an office of 4 now in Atlanta, which represents 300% growth in the last couple of years. Similar story in Paris. We have 3 people in Paris as well. Small but growing team there. Not all of these projects are timber, but I think all but 2 maybe are on this slide, but this is just kind of representative of the work that we do at Equilibrium. And I think maybe the primary takeaway here is we're not pigeonholed into one thing. We do projects of all scales. Timber is certainly a common theme in our projects, and most of these are timber projects, but trying to always use materials in creative ways and in the ways that they work best, right? And we're certainly partial to mass timber. I'm going to blitz through this really quick because this has been talked about by everyone so far, but mass timber in Georgia, you guys have seen these projects. There's a number of good precedents in Georgia, and it's great to see one now coming up in Macon. Those are projects that are built. In terms of projects that are on the go, I think we are still, ramping up what we're doing here in the Southeast and in Georgia with more and more timber projects. So these are some projects that Equilibrium has on the boards right now within Georgia. So this is just our firm. Certainly there's many more projects that I'm not aware of that are being planned, being designed right now in Georgia. But doing a little connector building between 2 existing residence halls at Georgia Tech, the Smith and Howell dorms. That'll be a timber building. A boutique office. Yeah, that is it. There you go. That is your Georgia University one. There is also one, the Candida building at Georgia Tech, right? Doing a project, a boutique office building in South Downtown Atlanta. A small campus for a nonprofit in the west side of Atlanta. It's about 80,000 square feet in total, full mass timber. It has a 3-story office building and then a 1-story training community center and a 1-story kind of mixed use and assembly space. The 2 biggest and perhaps most exciting projects I can't really tell you much about, but suffice to say that there's a couple potentially really significant projects coming in Atlanta. So back onto the FBO. I think this is actually the same graphic I saw earlier, maybe in Matt's presentation. So I won't rehash that, but the project uses 3 different types of mass timber. It uses glulam, it uses CLT, and it uses what you might just call trees. Some people call it SRT, structural round timber. A lot of names for it, but logs, trees. This is a little cutaway view of our structural model for the project, our Revit model. And as you can see, it's mostly timber. There are a couple non-timber elements. We have CMU block walls in the middle that provide much of the lateral stability for the building. We have a couple of steel moment frames at the end to keep the building from twisting too much, since those core walls are pretty tight in the center of the building. And then there's a bit of miscellaneous steel framing at the guitar neck and head. So focusing a bit more on that, again, you can see we have small steel moment frames holding up the neck and a bit of steel overframing to support the head. We had a really long cantilever. Couldn't do it. I mean, we could have done it in all wood, but it was a good time to just use a bit of steel, throw it up on top of the CLT where you won't actually see it. Looking inside the space, again, you can see these radial beams coming out. But if you look straight from the side, you see there's significant gap between the beams and the CLT, which is of course unusual. Normally you put your beams right up underneath the floor. We did that for 2 reasons. The first is that in this section view, you can see we have the same glulam beam running from that wraparound balcony that goes around the whole outside back to the inside of the space. You always need a drop in your structure when you're going from inside to out for waterproofing reasons. This project, like many others, will use a pedestal and paver system, and underneath that you have your waterproofing and your sloping to shed water off the balcony. So we needed a step of at least, call it 8 or 10 inches for that. But because we were doing that, we figured we'd take the opportunity to drop just a little bit further and then allow a big enough gap for services, including ductwork, to run through, which makes it such that you now will see those glulam beams unimpeded, right, by your building services running through the space. And this is one of the things about a mass timber building. Everyone thinks about showing off this beautiful mass timber structure, but you're also showing off all the other stuff that's usually on the ceiling, right? That you don't normally see. All the stuff that's above these tiles right now that we're not thinking about, but they're there. So finding good ways to integrate those systems into a building is really important. And this is one of the strategies that we took on this building. So we have these spacer connectors that go between the glulam and CLT. We're making those out of, it's actually an S section, similar to a wide flange shape in steel. And in order to minimize waste, we're cutting them in this pattern out of a steel beam. Again, it's kind of a bit of a nod to a guitar pick. At one point, we had ones that really looked like guitar picks, but those got VE'd out. You know, there's some people here who can fundraise, so if you can find another 100 grand, we can get those back. So the last little point on the structure here is these two big round columns. This is where we're using that SRT, structural round timber. You might just call it a tree. I think Whole Trees is going to be supplying those. They've done a number of really awesome projects involving SRT. This is just an example, so you might get some idea of kind of what this product looks like. Really, really cool product. Pivoting a bit to talk about the timber supply for this project and the story that's somewhat uniquely a Georgia kind of Macon story here. So first, you know, someone else already went through this, I think, but kind of the actual process of producing CLT, producing mass timber, of course, starts at the forest, goes to the mill, goes to the CLT plant, and ends up on the job site. There was always a desire to use regional southern pine on this project from the beginning, and preferably sourced from Georgia forests. From those forests, of course, we're going to the mill. I'm sure most people here, or at least many people here, have been to a sawmill before. If you haven't, check one out. They're insane. Just these huge, massive facilities with unbelievable throughput. Super, super automated these days. But anyway, what comes out of there, of course, is lumber. And at this step, it hasn't made it to the kiln yet, but the last thing, right, is going to the kiln and getting dried out. Most lumber is dried to 19% or less. Usually it comes just under 19%. You don't want to dry it more than you necessarily have to. For CLT, cross-laminated timber, you have to have your moisture content at below 15%. And so there is a little bit of extra work that has to be done at the mill or post-processing from the mill to get those boards to where they can be used. This project is being supplied by SmartLam. SmartLam is owned by sawmills, and so they kind of have this sorted out, right, where they can automatically sort CLT grade lumber, which has been dried enough from their facilities. And just to give you a sense of the scale of mass timber right now relative to the scale of the lumber industry, it's nothing. SmartLam, again, like I said, owned by sawmills. Those sawmills send less than 1% of their lumber to SmartLam. And that supplies all of SmartLam's mass timber operations. So a lot of room to grow within the industry for sure. Anyway, from the mill, these boards then go to the facility. This is a shot from SmartLam's facility in Dothan, and you can see a layer being dropped on here to make a CLT panel. They have a press that can go up to 11'1" by 51'4", I think. So really big panels are possible here. We will be using quite a bit smaller ones due to the weird geometry that we have on the FBO project. When we were designing this project, because we knew we wanted regional supply, there were basically two options. It was Mercer in Conway, Arkansas, and SmartLam, who ended up getting it in Dothan. And as Seth mentioned, this is not a commoditized industry. Mass timber, different shapes, different sizes, different species, different layups, right? Which is, you know, the grades you're using and how you actually put them together to form CLT. So one of the challenges with this, which was a hard bid project, and other things Seth mentioned, it's nice to have a contractor on board early. We didn't have that benefit. So one of the things we did was we basically designed for two different suppliers because we figured it'd be one of those two. And so all of the designs that we did with the CLT, we were checking each step along the way what was going to work for each one of these suppliers. We ended up doing two different layups, one geared towards SmartLam, one towards Mercer for virtually the whole building. SmartLam 1, and so that's of course the one that will be used. But one other thing that we did was we created a custom, called a recipe for CLT. So rather than using one of the existing layups that SmartLam had, we knew that they'd be able to do something they hadn't necessarily done before. And the reason we did this was because we wanted to use as much Georgia-sourced wood as possible. And just the way that our supply chain is with SmartLam, they can source visually graded lumber from Georgia, but not mechanically graded. But we needed more strength than we could get from visually graded. So, or from the visually graded product that they currently had. So the solution we had was, instead of using that product, which uses number 2 lumber, we asked them to use number 1. And so that they were able to source from Georgia. They have to get certified to produce that because they haven't produced that before, but they're willing to do that for the project, and they think it actually gives them a new offering that's kind of in the middle that will be good for them in the future. So this will be the first project using number 1 Southern Pine. It's also going to be all the CLT lamb stock coming from Georgia, which was a big win. Turn it back over to you guys to wrap it up.
And what's nice, just to go on that, that means over 70% of the building is southern yellow pine.
From Georgia.
From Georgia, yes, which is very important. As the mayor said, demolition is already occurring. Thanks for Sheridan doing their work. We're very excited about that. We have other project that is also going to be bid out, which will get the rest of the site clear. And we're very excited to be done on time as the mayor wants us to be. So we're committed to that, as he knows. So thank you very much. Really appreciate your time.
So I want you guys to kind of hang back for a second, because I think we're going to have a few questions from the audience. But I do want to recognize here with us as well as the aviation director for the airport, Mr. Doug Fowler. And Doug, if you wouldn't mind maybe coming up and just sharing a few short words as we close out this presentation. I think a couple of things about this project that are interesting. So GFF was the recipient of a Wood Innovations grant that helped us establish these mass timber hubs and to establish our mass timber accelerator. The Macon Airport project was also a recipient of a Wood Innovations grant through the U.S. Forest Service. I think that's pretty bold that you guys were able to apply for that and be awarded that. You know, and in my experience, I think some of the issues or challenges that you run into with mass timber, it takes having people on your team, you know, like these guys who are experts, but it also takes people who are committed to the material, committed to creating a sense of place, committed to the material for whatever objective that you may have, whether that's efficiency, whether it's creating a sense of place, whether it's sustainability, or whether it's all of those things combined. And so, Doug, I think you've played a role in that, and as well as the mayor. So, if you would just give us a couple of comments.
Well, thank you. I've learned a lot today. Also learned that one of the things I did learn was mass timber reduces construction time by 25%, but Sheridan, luckily the mayor wasn't here when they announced that, so you may not have a request for a revised schedule. No, thank you. This is an exciting project, and I could go back to the very first time we first started having the conversation, and we need a new terminal. Our terminal is over 40 years old. It is the gateway, probably the most important gateway to our community, and hadn't been touched in a really long time. And as Mayor mentioned, very important people will walk through those doors. They're going to make very important decisions. Do I want to do business in Macon or not? So the first impression, we knew that we needed to work on it, certainly. And so in airports, one of the things that we try to accomplish is creating a sense of place. Now, this is an FBO executive terminal. It's not a commercial terminal. And for those of you who may not know what FBO is, it's just a fancy term for gas station for airplanes, pretty much is what it is. So, but corporate aircraft come in and they use the executive terminal and they don't mix with the commercial terminal. So this is our executive terminal. And we've always looked at this as a community project, not an airport project because of that. But back to the original days of this first coming up, we sat down in a room and said, Doug, what do you want? And I said, well, first thing we need to do is create a sense of place. People know if you were to put a blindfold on them, stick them in the, drive them to the executive terminal, take it off, could they figure out where they were? So, and a good example of that's Denver International Airport. If you've ever been there and you see the big white tarps that are in the front that look like mountains, and if you've ever been on the train, you'll hear the ditty on the train when the doors open and close. It's about a second long, and then she's coming around the mountains really quick. So there's these very subtle hints as to where you're at. This guitar is not so subtle. I mean, it's pretty obvious what we're trying to communicate here, and it's due to our musical heritage. So that's how it all started. They brought several designs into us, and they said, well, here's some things that different ideas, and there was this guitar was the last one, and I was, man, I love that, but I don't know that anyone else is going to bite off on this. This is pretty bold, but I love it. So we presented it to the mayor, and the mayor loved it. So that was a relief because I was afraid I was going to get my head chopped off for bringing something so bold. But and the support that we've got to do this project's been phenomenal. It's and I talked to a lot of communities. Airports, different airports, and they're like, how did you in the world did you convince people to let you do this? It was actually pretty easy. Just showed them the picture and there we are. So we're really excited about what this is going to do for our community, and we're excited about what it's going to do for our airport. Most of the time, FBOs won't invest in, they want fancy, but they're not going to go over the top with creative designs, because most of them are ran by private companies and they're looking at the bottom line. So for us, this is a little bit different. FBOs don't typically do that because they don't know that it's going to generate that much more business for them. But this is so unique. We believe it's going to generate additional business. People are going to want to come see this. This is by far the most unique FBO in the entire country, and very proud that it's all Georgia, or mostly Georgia timber. So with that, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to share those details with you, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. All right.